Right, so as I can see, we're already online, that's cool. So managing digital transformation in SMEs is what I'm now talking about. And as Peter actually introduced, we are one company which is actually dealing with IT services. So just a brief background on what we are doing, and I'm just stepping aside a bit so that you can see. To the other side, probably. Yes, there you go, there you go. So IT services is what Citadelle Systems is doing, and we're doing the managed services. So whenever you got a problem with your computer, we are there to help you, and that's the new group. So I'm owning a couple of IT companies, and we are combining those to a new one. So this is what's happening with Citadelle Systems. We are now in 5 different locations, as you can see, and we believe that that industry is actually about to change. And that also applies to a lot of small and medium-sized enterprises, because we are buying those. And we're actually making good use of digitization, which is now going on. Those business models are changing, and the old entrepreneurs, having founded those companies, they will have to change as well. Some of them manage, most of them don't. So this is our chance to then combine those companies in a new environment. Internally, they will need some changes, but externally, product offering is different. So much about what my background is, and once again, thanks for the introduction. So digitization, to start off, really is not more of the same thing. We have known digitization for decades, actually. But this is a new breed of digitization, which we're now facing. So let me elaborate a bit on this one. Because eventually, if you digitize a crappy process, you get crappy digital processes. So this is what is happening there. You need to think about what you're doing there. It's not we are trying to get something digital. We need to actually apply what we know to a very different environment. So what is described there is my quote of the day, and probably resonates with the rest of my speech here. So digital transformation used to be something which was very German. It was engineering. You did some processes, you digitized those processes, you had some software which you just implemented to just build a digital process around something which you used to do manually. That was digitization decades ago, because that is well known. We have become a lot more digital. If we are talking right now about digitization, we're in an environment that still is fundamentally different. We have other devices not known before. A decade ago, you wouldn't have actually been able to do anything of your studies on a mobile phone. Not possible 10 years ago. Well, now it is. You got a mobile MBA. Perfectly possible. So that's a different kind of breed which we are facing here. So digital used to be aimed to increase efficiency. It was just the old process, now digitized. What you're seeing there now is digital is currently competing with a different business model. So those different business models are actually changing. You need to understand your customer better. The customer is more democratized. Your complete relationship between your company and the customer is democratized. So that was probably like 8 years ago. I went to a conference in Berlin, and they were talking about, well, you used to do those laboratory rats, and you let them just run around, and you just see if you're guiding them there, you put some cheese there, they're running there. So that was the consumer like 10 or 20 years ago. You could actually analyze the consumer like that. Today, the consumer has the means of social media. And with social media, the consumer and you're just face to face. You're up there, and the consumer really tells you, this is what I like, and this is what I don't like. And they speak out if they don't like. Mostly not if they like, though, but if they don't like, they will. So eventually, this is changing the game. And if you're changing the game like that, you also need to apply what you're learning from the consumer just by being customer-centric. No other way around it. You just have to deal with that new reality. And it's about addressing those customer needs. It's a dynamic process. And like I said, it's transforming business models. So when we're talking about subscription economy, we are changing how you're earning money. If you're thinking about your cash flows and you get cash flow once, it's a different game if you get those cash flows in on a perpetual level. Because those cash flows are smaller. Yes, they are perpetual, but they are smaller. And payback is something which is some time. People can actually cancel their contracts in between, and so on and so forth. A lot more democracy along the way. In a broader context, this actually means that the innovation cycle, to start with, has become a lot different. We could think things through. This is what small and medium-sized enterprises in Germany know very well. They think things through. They wait their turn. They build something which is then tested in the market, and then it's market ready, and mostly don't be a first mover. So the innovation cycle used to be long. That was the industry logic. It's short now. You test stuff out, you scrap it along the way if it doesn't work, and do something else, or adapt it. It's crucial resources. It used to be capital. Well, now it's the direct customer access. You're selling customer data. And even if Facebook is doing a crappy job in securing the customer data, they own it, and that's their business model. And we willingly give it away, just for the sake of now we are socially combined with all our friends worldwide. It's what you get. The organizational principle used to be centralized. Now it is decentralized. You're dealing with organizations employing people around the globe. And when you introduced me with, I used to be head of supply chain with a very traditional company, and waste management is traditional, I can tell you. Well, eventually, one of my employees used to work half a year in Southeast Asia and half a year in Germany, because his wife was living in Southeast Asia. So he was moving there half a year and coming back the other half of the year. Worked perfectly with Skype and so on. So there's Skype for Business. It's all being dealt with. But you need to adapt to those new realities. You need to find people who are willing to relearn what management in the current sector, in the current environment is. And that's the attitude towards employees. You get a pool of ideas. Stick to those employees. Make them feel welcome. Make them actually feel a lot more flexible along the way. So this is a whole different logic from that used to be a cost center. HR management always was a cost center. You always just went there when you got rid of people or you hired people. In between, not so much. Development, personnel development, why? They are learning along the job. So that's different now. You probably read over the rest of the slide. So let me switch to what are those companies which I'm talking about now doing with data. You're getting that big data, and you're getting cloud computing as a means to then analyze and collect big data. Are they really using it? And well, no, they don't. So it's well not adapted. So right now, you're sitting on a wealth of information which you are either not collecting correctly, or you're just analyzing not enough, or you just don't have the means to implement what you've learned out of it as a new product. So this is why you're not digging into the data. And there's a lot of stuff to be done there. And just as you can see, large companies are way better than smaller companies in analyzing and implementing big data and cloud computing. That's not so much a surprise, because those smaller companies, like I said, they are risk averse. They're not early movers, but when they do, they go in force. And eventually, it's also how many projects are you doing? That's on the right-hand side there. On the right-hand side, you got those 50 employees and above. Yes, they're doing a lot more in digital projects, but mostly, if you combine those, you have just above the 20% in digital projects. This is how much digital is being done in SMEs. So digitization is really not a curse. It is just a fact of life. Get used to it. So when life gives you lemons, start with asking why it does. So if you perceive those new developments as lemons, why do you do? Maybe you were just on the wrong track just along the way all the time. So it might be that's why you're perceiving it very negatively. Second thing is, making lemonade really means looking into the opportunity you have at hand. If we are complaining about GDPR, we're missing the point. The point is distinguishing yourself from a country which is just collecting data and doing anything with it. GDPR tries to prevent that, tries to give you back your privacy. Just look at it that way. So there's a European regulator trying to protect your data privacy. That's unique. It might be seen as a curse because there's a lot of hassle around that. But then again, this is a competitive advantage. If you want secure data or your data secured, stick to GDPR. It's a way different way of thinking about it. It's not a curse, it's an opportunity. And you need to get rid of those outdated products. That is a blessing. Outdated products will die along the way anyway. And if it's digitization which forces them to die, well, this is just the way it goes. It's the way of the world. So that's also not a curse. It's a blessing. And well, about this slide, I haven't added any specific content after that slide because I could actually talk about that for hours and days. So digitization by itself is not a strategy. No, we are going digital is not a strategy. You have a goal, and that goal has to be reached somehow. And you mold your strategy towards that goal. If digitization will help you to reach that goal, fine, do it. But we're going digital just to preserve our company, that won't help. You have no clue what digitization really means for your company, what it really does with your organization, how you actually adapt your organization to digital processes. They are new, to new digital products. They are new. So how do you adapt? And this is the point. It's not a strategy. It's a means to an end. But that end will have to be defined first. So when I'm talking with entrepreneurs, when I'm talking with those smaller companies about how digital they are, I get a whole different kind of answer from one conversation to the other, but they are mostly not quite sure yet what it really means to them. So just define digital as part of your strategy, nonsense. Think about why you're doing it first. Think about what you really want to reach with looking into digital options and what those digital options then are. Like I said in the beginning, don't only look into your processes. Think about your business model. It is attacking your business model. That's the new kind of digitization which we are talking about. I wouldn't have to be here and just hold this presentation if digitization still meant its new processes digital. It's not what we are facing currently. And it's also not your most pressing challenge from time to time. So when you're thinking that digitization saves you, might be that something else is going horribly wrong, and that going horribly wrong will then be dealt with first, before you digitize anything. So it is relevant, you will have to deal with it, but maybe you're going bankrupt because of something very different. So think about what your most pressing challenge is, and digitization, like I said, might not be it. But it's void until you fill it with meaning. For everyone, it is something else. Digital processes, digital products, digital businesses, they are different in every sector. They're different for every organization. You will have to adapt your own environment. You will have to adapt how you think about your clients, how you think about your organization, and the way you want to have your company perceived in the future, and fill that with meaning first before you start into something like a digital project. It is different for everyone. And this is also why in my last company, we were digital from the beginning. We were selling software worldwide, just like you have heard in the introduction. Worldwide meaning 193 countries. It's all fine. Software is digital, processes are digital anyway, but still, if you're loving innovation, something could happen like I'm going to explain you right now. You jump onto a bandwagon which is not yet rolling. So you have this great idea. You're loving technology and you're developing something very new, and that brand new is actually before the market really exists. So you're 3 years ahead of the market. If you're 3 years ahead of the market, you won't be able to sell your newly designed product. So it comes back to think about your innovation process. If a new product is what your company needs and what your company loves to introduce and loves to invent, you have to follow those 7 steps, if you like it or not. Do an ideation first. Think about what it could be. That's brainstorming, it's ideation. You find something and you're very open there. Eventually, you screen those ideas. That's also something which you will have to do. You can't put all your eggs in one basket, yes, but then again, you will have to narrow down because you're coming up with 10 different ideas. They're all great. Some part of your team loves the one idea, some part loves the other. You can't go ahead and fund all of those. It's just business necessity. Then go ahead and develop that concept. Test it. You can't jump from 2 to 4. You don't know what the probability is that your profit will actually occur. The profitability analysis will have to come after you have tested something. If there's business, if there's a market, you will see that in step 3. If there's not, don't do it. Don't even calculate what it might be. You will love your product anyway, and that is why you will have to follow those 7 steps, because they will only tell you if there's innovation or not. And that's really relevant to those SMEs. Develop the product, test the market then with a fully developed product, and then actually go into the market. That's step number 7, if you followed through the 6 before. Don't jump ahead, do all of those, and you're safe on the market. So digitization, and this is mostly the core of what I'm presenting here for you. It is a change process. You're fetching organizations, you're fetching people at one point in their development. From that point onwards, digitization will have to be filled with meaning, but it has to change how you're doing things, how you're thinking. So that change process will have to be guided. That is the manager's task. And just today, a press release came out, well, the German government has also found out it has to come from top. So the boss really has to say, well, we are going digital now. It's a brand new finding. So create buy-in. People will have to buy in your idea, and they will have to buy in your course of action. It's a change process. And let me share one experience from my MBA with you. So you're now sitting dispersed in those rows, just like we did in one of those presentations where it was about managing digital change or managing change processes at all. So professor came in. We were finding our places just like the weeks before. Professor told us, well, now, get up. 2 seats further, and sit down again. So take 2 steps to your right and sit down again. We did, everyone was grumbling. So now everyone was settled in once again, and was just saying, well, there was just 2 seats. You're trying to alter organizations. You're trying to alter the way people think. And you were grumbling about just taking 2 seats to your right. Think about that. So the real challenge might not even be to find something which is worthwhile pursuing digitally. It might be to fetch your organization from the point where they are right now and create buy-in so that they will follow. That's why I'm saying, well, fill it with meaning. Digital is void before you fill it with meaning. It needs to be understood why it is important to leave. So the old state, you can either take people with you by creating a very great vision. People will follow with that great vision. But it might also be necessary to just burn the ship. Jump, and you will have to make people jump. Burn the ship. So if nothing else helps, create a burning platform. Burning platform, great book, just Google it. You're going to find a lot about that. So there's an infinite variety of possibilities where you can move. That's why I was iterating around this. You will have to invest somewhere and not in all those different kinds of options. You only have finite means in euros. And people are ambivalent about change. Everyone talks about, well, something has to be changed, but it's mostly the others. So it's not me. No, I have the idea, but now go and change. So you like what is coming out of change, but you don't like the process because you'll have to adapt to something new. You just take 2 seats further to your right. You don't like the process, but the learning was just awesome. It is connected with fears. People fear change. So tell them where they're getting. Tell them why digital is necessary. And thus, every change process actually faces the challenge of moving people. So when we're hearing complaints about geopolitical imbalances, so that really just doesn't reduce the complexity. What I mean is, we are saying the US is way ahead of us in digital. Well, that's fine, but we are defining digital in a very different way here in Europe than they do. Take GDPR as an example. They would have never come up with GDPR or something like that. Why should they? It's destroying business models. But here, the mindset is different. It's the old continent. So therefore, we have gone through a bit more, which then also changes the mindset. So that different mindset gives us a competitive advantage, but it also has to be perceived as that. And I'm believing into those geopolitical imbalances just not being negative or positive, but just they are imbalances. And you got two sides to every coin. So don't complain about it, but just try to see where the advantage is. And SMEs are different. That's also something which you have to keep in mind, because 60% of employees in Germany work in SMEs. It is relevant to know how they are different. If you have this large organization, the large ship just moves slowly. Yes, that's what people say. But then again, it is a lot more impersonal. You got personal relationships in SMEs way more than you do in those larger conglomerates. So that is one part of the change you will then also have to keep in mind. You're talking to real people. It's just those few people working in your company. So who am I changing? Well, the person is sitting right in front of me. The SME landscape itself is heterogeneous. It's the backbone of the German economy. They have the ability to move, and when they do it in force. But they are always risk averse. So they can't invest as first movers. If the money's gone, they might be gone. So funds are not that thick as they are in conglomerates. And if they aren't, you really have to make sure that your decision is the right one. So being an entrepreneur myself, I can only look into my pocket where money's coming from. What I don't have, I can't spend. And I'm ultimately responsible for the business. So that impedes you in your hunger for investment. That impedes you in your hunger for risk. But you will have to take it, otherwise you're not an entrepreneur. And this is what's coming into one person within the SMEs. And if you're talking about family-owned businesses, this is part of family life. I remember one of my last employees, the Renus Group, is actually completely family-owned. And that family was dealing with the large conglomerates they owned every single minute of their day. Even when it was Christmas, the brothers sat together and discussed how they are moving the business forward. So this is how SMEs are different. You own it, and it's part of you. It's part of your lifestyle. And let me just briefly talk about that thing which comes as an angel. And there's a chief digital officer. So we're going digital now. When we hire this chief digital officer, won't help you. They are not distinguished by wearing sneakers. So that's just not the point. They are just not the young ones. It's also not the point. They will not drive the change all by themselves, because 54%, that's a very brand new number actually, spend more time advertising the digital strategy than really implementing it, because it's a change process. And if you're just adding one person to your board, it's coming from the top, well, yes, but you can't leave that person alone. It can be a very lonely life if you are a digital change maker on top with no one underneath you. It's a matrix. You're all in a matrix organization. So you actually have some direct reports, but then again, they are indirect, so they are not direct reports. Well, technically they are, but well, you might also want to talk with. And so it all starts. Leading the life of a chief digital officer is really mostly not fun. You're trying to bomb one organization from where they came from into the new life, and that's all you. So you're coming into the room and people already perceive you as, oh, that's the digital guy. And he's making everything great. No, that's not gonna happen. So as an entrepreneur, you will have to think about, where am I? What is my organization? And does the digital officer really help me? The digital officer won't drive the change all by himself. Your organization will have to follow. And if you don't make sure that it does, digital officer is just a bad investment. And it's just the beginning. If we're talking about digitization, we have to think about where are we lagging behind. We can complain about mobile payments just coming up now. So mobile payments are far from being advanced here for us in cash-loving Germany. You still pay your taxi mostly by cash. Some of them have not working credit cards, yes, yeah. They always work, but they just don't want to spend the 2% which they have to pay for the credit card. So credit card payments, less common than cash. People in Germany also love cash because you have it in hand. You don't see it as a number on your mobile. You don't see it as a number on your computer. You have it in your hands. If that is more of a secure means of paying, it's something completely different. Ever lost 20 euros? Ever lost 50 euros as a bill? It just flew in the wind and you just didn't remember where you lost it, so it can happen still. And eventually, if you think about how am I then following up with my own finances, if you're just taking off your account and you do it with cash, do you really have a better grip on your amounts of money than with having them actually online and seeing them being able to analyze them in Excel? I don't think so. So in China's streets, there's some examples. You can actually pay with WeChat and the QR code. But in Kenya, so in African economies, they were mobile before we even thought about it. But that was because they had no other choice actually than to do so. Try to find an ATM in Kenya. If you want to pay, there's no ATM, like 100 kilometers away, there's an ATM. You can't actually fill those landscapes with ATMs. Why should you? If there's mobile payment available, they are going mobile way before we even thought about it. So that's why it has been around for over 10 years. And the outstanding value of cash in circulation actually also dropped within Europe. Sweden is way ahead. Nonetheless, these are all those geopolitical differences, mindset differences. And you will have to adapt also to those differences and make them an advantage. Think about it, what it means for your own business. Just don't complain if you're trying to see, well, we're just lagging behind. Well, these are the circumstances right now. What can I do? Does it all make sense for me or doesn't it? It's only one answer for each person. And it is really the issue of starting points. Digital transformation is a change process. So nobody likes to move from one point to the other just by himself, and everyone has a prehistory. There's restrictions, there's constraints, the money. The restriction is maybe they have tried something like that. Ever heard that change, that loving change word? Yeah, we did that, didn't work. So that's why we are not doing it again. The environment might have changed completely, but still, yeah, we've done that. And we've tried it, we're not doing it again. It's a change process. So it is an issue of the starting point. You will have to get your organization to really follow, and that's really, really true in an SME. It's people and it's individuals. In addition, hardly anyone really talks about those failed companies. When we're talking about those blessings and those large companies in the US, and we'll look at Silicon Valley, how large those companies are, could never happen in Germany because we don't have the funding. Well, switching back one slide, there's a reason for that. The new digital economy is being funded in a different way. It is promoted, and that's the last bullet point there. And you have to put a lot of effort to secure large funding. But that's not how the venture capital industry in Germany works. It's how the venture capital industry in the US works. They're pumping in a lot of money, and they want multiples, so the value of the company, to just go through the roof. They're looking for unicorns. And the term unicorn is already known in Germany. Well, we've come a long way. However, that's not how we invest in Germany, and SMEs never invest like that. They're trying to be risk averse, to split their funds among those different projects. Not to go with 10 different projects, 7 suck, 7 just go down the drain, 2 perform so-so, and 1 goes through the roof. That's venture capital thinking. That's not how SMEs work, and that's also not how venture capital in Germany really works. So digitization is not sometime, it is now. And let me just go through how to do it right. If I'm just telling you what you shouldn't do, I should also tell you what you should do. So start with the why. Why should I be more digital? Why have I not been digital enough? All those why questions you will have to answer before you do anything else. Why is it also good for my company's value? It always has to create value. Whatever you do, it has to create value. Then continue with the how. And you remember those 7 steps in innovation? That's just 3 steps here. Continue with the how. How are my competitors performing? What are they doing then? So how will I overcome previous obstacles? If there has been one attempt to do something and it hasn't worked out, analyze why it didn't. How will I be able to convince my employees? Because it's a change process. How will I finance it? How will I implement it? And so on. That's the list. And then finish with go. And go doesn't mean that we are then switching back to how and maybe even the why. If we're saying go, then we do go. And that's the frequent check, which is not being precluded from that. Yes, you are checking your progress along the way. But if you once you've decided something, go with it. Otherwise, there's a multitude of arguments why you should stop. Always is. In a nutshell, digital transformation impacts processes as well as business models. It is still a change process. It's about people. It's a means to an end. It's not a strategy by itself, it's a means to an end, but not a solution. And every organization needs to find its own answer. Thank you.